if you shy away from fighting on the main battlefront, then you're failing as a shepherd.
If you believe this is a threat to the church, and really if you're in Christian leadership, you ought to be willing to answer questions about what your positions are on just about anything, I would think.
Yeah, not only should you be willing to answer questions, but you should be volunteering to come out and give guidance. I mean, that's what these guys market themselves as, and rightfully so on most issues.
Pay attention to what was not said and what ought to have been said.
He's not being very clear about it. So I think clarity is what we need to emphasize.
But Phil, you've known me for a long time. You know the answer to the question is yes, but I'm not going to be forced into a situation before thousands of people in which I have to say I'm going to do it your way. Sorry. I'm just not.
What does that mean?
It's the strangest thing in the whole Q&A, because Phil's question was as weak as it could be. His question was, don't you see that this is a potential problem, which Mueller has already said that he thinks it's a problem. Phil at that point really should have said, all right, let's just stop beating around the bush here. Jarvis Williams is on your staff. He's pro-intersectional. He tweets about the fact that he's pro-affirmative action. Mr. Duncan, you affirmed woke church. Mr. Dever, you have all of your interns read, was it Divided by Faith?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and Lehman studied the London School of Economics, Fabian Socialist School, and it turns out that you defend people voting for Democrats, the party that approximately a couple days ago just recently decided that we can kill newborns.
Even if he didn't want to be that forthright, he could have said, all right, so you recognize this is a problem. What should be done about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mueller says, I'm not going to be forced to do it your way. I don't know what that means because I don't know what he has in mind as Phil's way, or why he thinks Phil is forcing him to do it his way. But I want to know, what is Mueller's way other than silence?
Yeah. And you heard a little bit of it earlier in the discussion, because Mueller said, look, behind closed doors, the conversations that the evangelical leaders are having, everybody knows my position. We're like, really? Okay, so why don't you want us to know your position?
Yeah, why does that have to be behind closed doors? And how is it helpful to the church if it's behind closed doors? Mm-hmm. And why shouldn't people be asking, even if it's through people like Phil, what is going on behind those closed doors? I mean, shouldn't Christians all be waiting with bated breath as Phil asks you these questions so that we can see what's going on in the smoke-filled rooms behind closed doors?
His response, instead of, I mean, it was a softball question, but instead he basically says, if you want to divide fellowship over this. So that, to me, that suggests that they've had some kind of conversation leading up to this that we're not aware of, and that some button was pressed that Mueller had specifically asked. Please don't say this. Don't put me on the spot about this issue, or something like that, where the point is Mueller here feels personally attacked. And you can tell.
This would be a good time to find out.
I know that feeling when you just feel like something didn't go your way and you're in front of a whole crowd and your voice almost gives out and your body language tells everything. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened there. He's really upset because he feels like he's being personally attacked, I think. And graciously, MacArthur.
Jump in and just say, there's no question about our biblical commitment.
I don't understand what MacArthur was trying to do here, but I think there is a question. If you're going to be a biblically faithful leader, you ought to be telling people don't vote for Democrats.
Well, and even if you don't want to say that, which I agree with you, but if you're going to be a biblically faithful leader, you need to speak clearly about those issues which are currently dividing the church. That's the point. I mean, and I go back to that Luther quote. If you remain strong on every battlefield besides the one where the world and the devil are currently attacking, then you're not being a good leader. No matter how firm you stand on all those other battlefronts, many evangelicals look to these guys for guidance on these exact type of issues. And we're not getting it on this particular issue. And that should stand out. It does stand out like a sore thumb, and it demands explanation.
Here's the quote that I have is, if a man doesn't want the world to know what he believes in all clarity on relevant cultural topics, he likely does not belong in Christian leadership.
Yeah.
because it's a relevant cultural topic, and frankly, he has something to lose either way, because there's such a divide that exists that if he says what he believes, no matter what it is, it's going to alienate someone. So there's very, very possibly that's why he doesn't want to say it.
Yeah, well, and I ran into a whole bunch of people on Twitter who were flat out saying that was why he didn't want to say it, and that's why I should shut up and stop making him try to say it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, are you kidding me? do you know who you're talking about? You're talking about the guy who is famous for saying what needs to be said, no matter what it's going to, what the effects are going to be, when he took over the Southern Seminary.
Yeah, the calculus that says we need to not speak the truth on certain strategic areas because it will alienate our base, or it will reduce our funding, or it will divide our movement. It's important. It's important. And if it's important enough that you should have a conviction about it, then it's important enough that you should be willing to divide about it. Divide, like you always have explained to me, divide to the extent that is necessary given the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe, I don't think this is the case, but maybe they believe that this really doesn't matter. This isn't a controversial issue, that this is of very little consequence. In that case, that's what they should say. Mm-hmm. And then a whole bunch of people would be upset with them on both sides, because everybody on both sides, not just us, people on the other side are making big deals out of all of this issue. And it seems like they're trying to play it both ways. If you believe it's such a dangerous issue, as he seems to have indicated, then and we know that he's perfectly capable of speaking clearly and boldly and with conviction. That's what he's famous for. Mm-hmm. On issues that are of great import to the church. And so it's extremely out of character for him to not be speaking like that on this issue.
Right.
And the question is, why isn't he? And we don't even have to try to guess the motive, the answer to the why. I think it's sufficient to just say he's not doing it and he needs to be.